Hey guys, tonight we slip into sandals far dustier than your everyday flip flops because you're stepping into the skin of someone about to become part of one of humanity's most jaw dropping construction projects, the building of the Egyptian pyramids. The desert sun is already shimmering above the Nile Valley, and you can practically feel the heat radiating before you've even walked a single step. And let me tell you right now, this is no quick summer job. You're going to be part of something so monumental, so backbreaking, that modern people still argue whether aliens had a hand in it. Spoiler, no, it was your calloused hands and the sweat of thousands of others. You probably won't survive this job without more than a few blisters, pulled muscles, and maybe the occasional snake bite. But hey, at least you get bread beer and the right to brag you were part of history. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your current location and local time in the comments. I want to see if anyone is listening from a place hotter than the Giza Plateau. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story begins with the River Nile itself. Imagine walking along the water's edge as the dawn breaks the air still cool from the night. Reeds rustle, fishermen pull their nets, and boats drift lazily across the current. The Nile isn't just scenery, it's the reason you're alive. Every loaf of bread, every jar of beer, every scrap of papyrus that will one day record your name, or more likely forget it, entirely flows from this river. Without its yearly floods, the land would be a dry wasteland. Instead, the soil here is black, rich, and fertile, and your people call it Kemet, the Black Land. As you make your way toward the labor site, the chatter around you is a mix of excitement and dread. Word has spread Pharaoh Khufu has ordered the construction of a pyramid larger than anything attempted before. Some workers whisper that it's a tomb. Others, more cynical ones, grumble it's just a really big ego project. Historians still argue whether the pyramid was strictly a tomb or also a symbolic stairway to the sun god Ra, a monument of political dominance, or all three at once. But for you, the debate doesn't matter. What matters is that this colossal pile of stone is going to need your sweat and your back. You trudge along dusty paths with your satchel, basically a sack of onions, bread, and maybe some dried fish if you're lucky. Behind you stretches the Nile, and in front of you is a rising plateau where lines of men are already forming. Foremen looking far too smug for men holding sticks, bark orders to keep the crowds in line. There's no HR department, no neat punch cards, no friendly orientation video. Just a lot of yelling, a lot of dust, and a lot of people who look about as thrilled as you feel. The smell hits you first, sweatfish and something else, maybe a camel that hasn't bathed in well ever. You squeeze into a group of other new arrivals, young farmers, mostly pressed into service during the season when the fields are flooded and you can't farm anyway. This is one of the overlooked realities. Pyramids weren't built by slaves, as Hollywood loves to show. They were largely built by conscripted farmers during the agricultural off-season and also by paid laborers. Sure, you're not rolling in silver, but you'll get food, clothing, shelter, and even medical care if you throw your back out. Not a bad benefits package for 2600 BCE. The foreman gives you a once-over. His eyes narrow, as if to say, yeah, you'll do. Try not to die on day one. He scribbles, or rather scratches a symbol on a shard of pottery and hands it to you. This isn't a souvenir. It's your assignment token. It tells you which labor gang you belong to. Later, archaeologists would actually find these kinds of marks scrawled on pyramid blocks, little team names like Friends of Khufu or Drunkards of Menkar. You kind of hope your group's name is cooler than Drunkards, though. Let's be honest, that might be the most historically accurate. As the sun climbs, you march with your new work gang toward the base camp. From a distance, you can already see the pyramid's foundation taking shape. The sight alone is enough to stop you in your tracks. Massive stone blocks are being hauled by lines of men chanting in rhythm ropes, straining sledges, creaking. Dust clouds rise, catching the sunlight, so the entire scene looks like a mirage. This isn't a building site, it's an entire city in motion. The base camp itself is staggering. Rows of mud brick houses stand ready for workers. Bakeries churn out endless loaves of bread, and massive vats bubble with beer. Not the fancy IPA craft stuff, more like thick, gritty porridge you drink. It won't win awards, but it keeps you alive. Cows, goats, and donkeys mill around bleating and mooing over the din of hammers striking stone. You even see a makeshift hospital hut where a scribe keeps tally of injuries. Yes, workplace accidents are common, but apparently Egypt was ahead of its time. Broken bones have been found healed, well suggesting laborers actually got medical care. Not bad for 4,500 years ago. Someone nudges you. A lanky young man with sun-bleached hair grins and says, first time, don't worry, by the end of the week, your shoulders will feel like stone blocks themselves. You laugh nervously. He introduces himself as Menace. Whether that's his real name or a nickname, you're not sure, but you're glad for at least one friendly face. The overseer's whip cracks in the air, not to lash anyone, but as a punctuation mark. He shouts instructions, explaining the rules of camp. Work hard, keep your token. Don't steal bread, don't collapse in the sun. Collapse in the shade if you must, it's less disruptive. You chuckle until you realize he's probably not joking. By mid-morning, you're shown the barracks where you'll sleep. It's a cramped mud brick room stuffed with straw mats, smelling of smoke and sweat. You'll share it with your entire labor gang, so get used to snoring, coughing, and at least one guy who talks in his sleep. There's always one, and yet, despite the roughness, there's a strange sense of community. Already, some men are carving little doodles in the plaster walls, tiny boats, stick figure gods, crude jokes at the expense of the overseers. Centuries later, archaeologists would find such graffiti a small reminder that even workers on the world's greatest monuments needed to blow off steam. Lunch arrives, bread, onions, and beer. You choke it down, trying to ignore the grit of sand that always seems to sneak into every bite. It's not gourmet, but it's fuel. Besides, you'll need it. Tomorrow, you'll be hauling limestone under the full blast of the desert sun. As the day winds down, you climb onto the barracks roof to catch the breeze. From up here, the Nile shimmers in the distance, and beyond it, farmlands stretch into the horizon. You think of home of family left behind and wonder if they'll even recognize you after years of pyramid duty. Men around you swap stories, argue about which god is strongest, or laugh over who's got the worst blisters already. And then as the sun sets, you glimpse it, the skeleton of the pyramid, rising block by block into the fiery sky. It's both terrifying and exhilarating. You're standing at the foot of something that will outlast every single one of you. Will anyone in the future know your name? Probably not, but they'll know the stones you placed. And for now, that's enough. You roll onto your mat, stomach full of onions and beer, head full of dust and awe. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Better sleep while you can. The rooster crows, or more accurately, some donkey brays, loud enough to jolt you awake. Your first full morning in the workers' village begins with the same harsh truth as yesterday. There's no escaping the sun. The desert light seems to leak through every crack in the mud brick walls, heating the place before you've even had time to rub the grit from your eyes. Your shoulders ache from sleeping on a straw mat, your throat feels dry from dust, and your stomach already wonders when the bread will show up. Welcome to the workers' village, your home away from home for as long as the pharaoh demands it. The village is more organized than you might expect. Rows of mud brick houses line narrow streets, each hut housing a labor gang like yours. Archaeologists would one day discover that this wasn't a shanty town of random huts, but a carefully designed settlement. Streets, bakeries, breweries, even a makeshift cemetery, all laid out with purpose. It's a reminder that while the work was grueling, the planners didn't treat you like disposable slaves. They needed you healthy, fed, and somewhat content, or the whole pyramid project would grind to a halt. You shuffle outside, feet crunching on sand and pottery shards. A warm breeze carries the scent of yeast and grain, leading you toward the massive bakery complex. Smoke curls from ovens, and workers are already elbow deep in flour and dough. The smell of fresh bread is heavenly, but don't let it fool you. This isn't soft, fluffy bakery bread. It's dense, gritty, and sometimes speckled with bits of sand or chaff. Think of it less like bread and more like edible bricks. But when you're hungry, edible bricks taste surprisingly good. Alongside the bakery is the brewery. Giant clay vats bubble with thick porridge like beer. The brew is low in alcohol but high in calories, packed with nutrients from barley and emmer wheat. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner all in one. Forget your modern protein shakes. This is your ancient Egyptian energy drink. You scoop up a bowl, the liquid grainy and warm, and gulp it down while trying not to think too hard about how many people's hands have stirred it. And here's a fun tidbit: workers on the pyramids consumed massive quantities of this beer, sometimes up to 4 liters a day. You might laugh, but in a land where the sun kills faster than a spear, hydration is life. Water goes bad quickly, beer stays safer. And besides, it takes the edge off a bit when your foreman's yelling echoes louder than the quarry hammers. After breakfast, you wander deeper into the village. The streets are alive with chatter. Children chase each other their feet, raising tiny dust clouds. Women prepare food, men clothes, or trade gossip about which overseer is secretly lazy. Men sharpen tools, repair ropes, and check sledges. It feels almost like any bustling small town, except every conversation eventually circles back to the same subject: the pyramid. Your friend Menes from yesterday waves you over. He's chewing on an onion, tears streaming down his face. He laughs between bites, saying, "This is the taste of pyramid life," crying while you eat. You grin. He explains that onions, radishes, and garlic aren't just cheap and filling, they're thought to give strength and ward off illness. Whether that's true or not, you're grateful for anything that breaks the monotony of bread and beer. In fact, onions and garlic were so valued that some workers were even paid partly in these vegetables. Imagine getting a paycheck in onions. Historians still argue whether this was common practice or just a temporary solution during shortages, but the idea sticks with you. Your sweat is literally worth its weight in garlic. You pass a row of barracks where injured workers rest. Some have bandaged arms, others hobble on splinted legs. The clinic isn't glamorous, but it's real. Broken bones have been found healed so cleanly that experts believe the workers had access to decent medical care. That's comforting, though it doesn't erase the risk. You silently vow not to end up in that hut if you can avoid it. By midday, the village buzzes with preparation. Groups gather tools, wooden sledges, copper chisels, rope thick as your arm. Foremen check rosters, scribbling names and assignments on potsherds. One gang sings a chant to pump themselves up, stomping in rhythm. Another practices lifting techniques, which looks more like an awkward group dance. You'll join them soon enough, but for now, you're content to observe, soaking in the rhythm of village life. There's camaraderie here that you didn't expect. Men laugh together, share food swap jokes about whose feet smell the worst. In the evenings, they tell stories of gods and pharaohs spinning tales so wild you wonder how much is myth and how much is beer talking. One man insists he saw a hippo in the Nile swallow a crocodile whole. You're skeptical, but you don't argue. He looks like he could outlift three of you. And here's where the debates creep in. Around the fire at night, voices rise as men argue about why they're even building this massive tomb. Some say it's to honor the gods, a stairway for Khufu to ascend into the afterlife. Others roll their eyes and claim it's nothing but royal vanity, a way for the pharaoh to scream, "Look how important I am across eternity." Historians still argue the same thing today. Was the pyramid purely a tomb, a political symbol, a cosmic machine aligned with the stars? The truth is, you'll never know. You just know you've got to haul stones, whether or not the stars line up neatly above your head. By late afternoon, the village quiets for a short rest. The sun is merciless now, and even the overseers retreat to the shade. You flop onto your mat inside the barracks, eyelids, heavy ears buzzing with the day's chatter. Outside, you hear goats bleating, a baby crying, and someone singing a slightly off key hymn to Hathor, goddess of love and music. Oddly enough, the off key part makes it more soothing. Even as you drift, you notice the walls of the barracks again. More graffiti has appeared since morning. Simple sketches of boats, animals, even crude caricatures of foremen with oversized bellies. You smile, realizing that humor survives in every age. Someone centuries in the future might look at these doodles and chuckle, proof that workers found time to laugh even under crushing labor. When evening comes, the village transforms again. Fires flicker, smoke curls into the cooling night air, and men gather for food. The bread is tougher than ever, the onion sharper, the beer warmer, but under the starlit sky, everything tastes better. Conversations hum, laughter bursts, and for a moment you forget the weight of the pyramid looming above. Then you remember tomorrow's task, hauling limestone under the whip of the sun. Your stomach tightens, but you push the thought aside. Tonight is for rest. You lean back, gazing at the stars. Orion glimmers above his belt, as clear as the pyramid lines themselves. Some whisper the pyramids are aligned with the stars' cosmic markers for eternity. Historians still argue if that's deliberate design or coincidence, but as you stare at the heavens, you can't shake the feeling. There's something more here than just stone and sweat. You yawn, stretching out on your mat, the sounds of the village lulling you into sleep. Tomorrow, the real work begins, but tonight, you're part of a community, a village that lives and breathes in the shadow of greatness. And though you'll never see your name on a monument, you'll leave your mark in laughter, in sweat, in graffiti scrawled on a mud brick wall. Quarrying the stones. The next morning, before Ra's golden disk has even cleared the horizon, you are already awake. The foreman's bark cuts through the thin dawn air, dragging you and your gang of workers from the comfort of your straw mats. The village stirs as men rub the sleep from their eyes, gulp down bowls of warm beer, and chew on hunks of yesterday's bread, so dry it threatens to crack a tooth. Breakfast is more about filling your belly than pleasing your tongue, but you shovel it down anyway. You'll need every crumb of energy for what awaits. Today is quarry day. The walk from the village to the quarry is long, but you barely notice the distance. You're too busy watching the sun slowly set the desert aflame, turning the limestone cliffs ahead into glowing walls of white. Your gang marches in single file copper chisels slung over shoulders, ropes coiled like snakes at your sides, and sledges carried in pairs. The rhythm of sandals crunching on gravel is broken only by the occasional sneeze from all the dust. When you arrive, the quarry is already alive with noise. Clink, clink, clink. Hundreds of hammers and chisels strike in unison, echoing across the stone walls like the heartbeat of the pyramid itself. Dust clouds rise, coating everything, including your lungs, in a fine, chalky film. The air smells of sweat, earth, and copper. Somewhere above, hawks circle lazily, probably wondering why humans voluntarily break their backs instead of just hunting mice like sensible creatures. Your foreman assigns your team to a section of limestone, unlike the harder granite blocks hauled from Aswan far to the south. These local stones are softer, though softer is relative. You'll still be chiseling until your arms feel like jelly. You and Menes wedge copper chisels into cracks, hammering again and again until flakes of stone split away. The sound is hypnotic, almost meditative if you ignore the sting in your palms and the ache in your shoulders. Here's a fact to soothe your tired brain. Copper tools wear down ridiculously fast on stone. That means constant sharpening, reshaping, and repairing. A single chisel might last only a day before it's reduced to a stub. Blacksmiths in the village work around the clock, recycling broken tools into new ones. It's a never ending cycle. Stone wears copper, copper reshapes stone. In a way, it's poetic. The pyramid isn't just built of rock, but of time, labor, and endless repetition. As your chisel finally bites deep, you and Menes insert wooden wedges into the crack and pour water over them. Slowly, the wood swells, forcing the stone to split with a satisfying crack. Cheers erupt from your gang. One block down, only about 2 million more to go. No pressure. Of course, prying the block free is just the beginning. Now comes the real test. Moving the beast. You and several men loop ropes around it, heave it onto a wooden sledge, and brace yourselves. The overseer yells, and you lean forward with all your weight. The sled groans, wood scraping against stone, but it shifts. Inch by inch, foot by foot, you drag the block across the quarry floor toward the ramp. A man douses the sand in front of the sledge with water, turning it slick. Suddenly, the sled slides more easily, gliding forward with a satisfying whoosh. You grin, ancient Egyptian engineering at its finest. Archaeologists thousands of years later would puzzle over how exactly the Egyptians hauled such heavy stones. Some theories claim they rolled them on logs. Others suggest complicated ramps. And one even proposes massive kites. But here you are, sweating through your linen kilt, proving that sometimes the simplest trick, water on sand, works best. By midday, you've hauled 3 blocks. Each one feels heavier than the last. Your muscles scream, your skin burns under the relentless sun, and your stomach begs for more food. Finally, the foreman calls for a break. You collapse in the meager shade of the quarry wall, gulping down more warm beer from a clay jug. Menes tears an onion in half and passes you a piece. The pungent bite jolts your senses awake, though it doesn't exactly soothe your stomach. Still, you can't complain. At least it's not raw garlic again, last time you ate, that nobody wanted to stand near you for hours. As you chew, you listen to the chatter around you. Some men boast about how many blocks their gang has cut today. Others grumble about aching backs and blisters. A heated debate breaks out nearby. One man insists the gods guide every swing of the chisel, while another claims it's purely the strength of human hands. You smirk, knowing historians thousands of years later will argue the same point. Was pyramid building divinely inspired or purely human ingenuity? For you, it's neither. It's onions, beer, and an overseer with a loud enough voice to keep you moving. After the break, it's back to work. The afternoon heat is worse, but your body finds a strange rhythm. Hammer wedge, water crack, haul drag, slide groan. Time blurs into dust and sweat. Occasionally, you catch glimpses of something beautiful, a hawk's shadow gliding across the limestone, the sparkle of mica in the stone, the faint breeze carrying the scent of the Nile. For a brief second, you forget the toil and feel oddly proud because here's the truth. These stones aren't just blocks. They're pieces of something greater, something that will outlast your children's children. When future generations look at the pyramid, they won't see your name or Menez's face, but they will see the weight of your labor in every gleaming stone. And in that moment, you realize you're not just building a tomb, you're building immortality. The sun finally begins to sink, casting long shadows across the quarry. The overseer calls it quits, and you nearly collapse with relief. Tools are gathered, sledges abandoned, ropes coiled. Your gang trudges back toward the village, every step a battle against exhaustion. Back in the village, the evening routine begins again. Bread, beer, onions, laughter around fires. Someone plays a simple tune on a reed flute, and others clap along. A storyteller launches into a tale about how the pyramid is actually a giant ladder to the stars, placed there by the gods themselves. Menes interrupts with a loud snort, saying, "If it's a ladder, then let the gods climb it themselves. We're too tired." Everyone bursts into laughter, even the overseer trying to look stern. Later, as you lie in your mat, staring at the ceiling scribbles, your body aches in every muscle. Yet beneath the pain, there's a strange satisfaction. You've moved stones today, stones that will stand long after your bones turn to dust. Your eyelids grow heavy. Tomorrow there will be more blocks, more sweat, more laughter, more onions. But for now, you let the desert night wrap around you, the stars above, watching silently as humanity inches its way toward eternity, one stone at a time. And you, yes, you are part of that eternity. Transporting and lifting the stones, you wake before dawn again. It's a rhythm, now your body rising, almost by instinct at the first faint glow on the eastern horizon. The village hums to life around you, workers stretching sore backs, children scampering between huts, women preparing jars of beer and loaves of bread for the day's laborers. The air is cool, almost pleasant, and for a few minutes you let yourself pretend the desert might stay merciful. But then you remember today, you aren't just quarrying. Today you're hauling stones all the way to the pyramid site. Your gang gathers ropes, wooden sledges, and baskets of water. The overseer, perched on a donkey like a king, surveying his empire, barks instructions. Menes nudges you and mutters, "I'd like to see him pull one of these blocks himself." You chuckle under your breath. Humor, even sarcastic humor, makes the load a little lighter. The quarry lies behind you, now its pale cliffs fading in the morning haze. Ahead, the road stretches toward the rising pyramid like an endless ribbon of dust. And on that road, rows upon rows of sledges, each bearing blocks of limestone, trundling forward under the groans and sweat of men just like you. It's a strange sight, hundreds of workers moving as one great machine, powered by muscle grit and onions. The system is surprisingly well organized. Wooden sledges carry the blocks, while teams of men haul ropes knotted to the front. Water carriers trot alongside, splashing the sand in front of the sledges to reduce friction. The effect is dramatic. What once dragged like dead weight now glides across the slickened path. Without this trick, you'd probably still be in the quarry, cursing the gods and your blisters. Historians in the far future will puzzle over whether this simple watering method really worked, but you, with your sweat soaked kilt and aching arms, can confirm it absolutely does. Still easier is relative. The ropes bite into your palms as you and dozens of others lean forward, chanting in rhythm to keep time. Heave, heave. Your muscles tremble, your feet slip in the wet sand, and every bone in your body insists this block weighs more than a small house. At one point, you swear the block is laughing at you, but slowly, with stubborn persistence, the stone moves. Inch by inch, the pyramid grows. Mid morning, you pass a group of children running alongside the road, waving and shouting encouragement. Some of them carry small baskets of dates, which they toss to the workers like prizes. You catch one midair and grin as the sweet fruit explodes with flavor on your tongue, a reminder that life is more than sweat and stone. By midday, the sun beats down like a hammer, the road grows hotter with every step, and the ropes dig deeper into raw skin. At the rest stop, your gang collapses under a patch of shade cloth strung between poles. You gulp down lukewarm beer from a communal jar, then stretch out flat, staring at the sky. Minnie's lies beside you, gasping dramatically. One day he groans. They'll invent a magic machine that moves the stones for us. You laugh and put us out of work. Exactly, he says. Then I can spend my days napping by the Nile. The thought lingers as you drift in and out of a sweaty half nap. The idea that someday, maybe centuries from now, someone will build machines that replace the strength of men, it feels absurd and yet tantalizing. Historians in the far off future will still argue, did thousands of laborers truly haul these blocks by hand, or did some lost technology assist? For you, there's no mystery. The answer is onions, beer, and stubborn human willpower. After the break, the road grows steeper. You're close to the pyramid now, its towering bulk blotting out the sky. The structure is staggering, already massive, though nowhere near finished. From this angle, the steps of the pyramid resemble a mountain carved by human hands, and you, a tiny ant at its base, are about to drag your stone up its side. Ramps stretch upward from the ground to the higher levels, wide enough for multiple sledges to pass. Workers swarm over them like ants, hauling blocks, shouting commands, splashing water, repairing broken sledges. It's organized chaos, a living system that somehow functions without collapsing under its own madness. Your gang joins the line at the bottom of the ramp. With a grunt, you lean forward again, dragging the block inch by inch up the slope. The incline is brutal. Your legs scream, your back bends, your lungs burn. Dust rises in choking clouds, mingling with the sweat streaming down your face. Every step feels impossible, and yet somehow the block keeps climbing. Halfway up, the sledge jolts to a stop. The ropes sag, men stumble, curses fill the air. For a moment, panic flickers. If the block slides backward, it could crush half the team. The overseer shouts, men jam wooden beams under the sled, and you hold your breath until the block stabilizes. Disaster avoided. Minnie's, ever the joker, wheezes. I told you the block is laughing at us. Despite the danger, you can't help but laugh too. Sometimes gallows humor is the only thing that keeps you moving. At the top of the ramp, masons wait to shape the block. They chip away the rough edges, smoothing it to fit perfectly with its neighbors. The precision is astonishing. Stones weighing tons fitted so tightly you can barely slip a blade of grass between them. Historians millennia later will marvel at this craftsmanship, debating whether the Egyptians had secret measuring tools or otherworldly help. You know the answer. It's the mason's sharp eyes, calloused hands, and a lifetime of practice. No aliens required. You and your gang collapse nearby lungs, heaving muscles trembling. From this height, you can see the desert stretching endlessly in every direction. The Nile gleams in the distance, its green banks a ribbon of life in the golden sand. Closer still, the pyramid rises beneath your feet, block stacked upon block, a monument clawing its way toward the sky. As evening falls, you trudge back down the ramps past rows of sledges and weary workers. The setting sun paints the limestone in shades of pink and gold, making the pyramid glow as if lit from within. For a moment, you forget the blisters and bruises. You forget the overseers shouting and the endless hauling. All you see is the dream, the impossible dream that you and thousands of others are slowly making real. Back in the village, dinner tastes sweeter. Bread dipped in honey lentils, stewed with garlic mugs of frothy beer passed around. Menes retells the days near disaster with exaggerated flair, earning roars of laughter. The children fall asleep, curled against their parents, soothed by the low hum of voices and the crackle of fires. Later, as you lie on your mat, your body aches in every muscle. But in the stillness of night, you feel something stirring deeper: pride. You are part of a machine greater than yourself, a piece in a puzzle that spans generations. Every block you drag, every drop of sweat you spill brings the pyramid closer to completion. And though your name may never be remembered, the work will. In thousands of years, strangers will stand in awe before these stones, whispering questions you can't answer, inventing myths about how it all happened. But you will know the truth. It was the strength of human hands. It was dust, sweat, laughter, and stubbornness. It was you. Life inside the workers' village. Food, families, and rest. You shuffle back into the workers' village just as the sky turns from orange to purple, the desert wind cooling your sweat drenched skin. The pyramid looms behind you, a jagged mountain of stone, silhouetted in the fading light. But ahead is something more comforting: the glow of fires, the smell of bread, and the low buzz of hundreds of tired, hungry humans returning to their small slice of normal life. The workers' village sprawls across the edge of the desert like a patchwork hive. Mud brick houses stand in neat rows, their walls warm with the heat of the day. Narrow lanes twist between them, crowded with children chasing each other, women balancing water jars, and old men crouched on stools with pipes and gossip. You know it well by now. It's not just a place to sleep, but an entire community organized with surprising efficiency. Archaeologists of the far future will marvel at how well planned it was, with streets, bakeries, breweries, and even small clinics. You, of course, are too tired to marvel. You just want food. Inside your modest hut, your wife has already set out dinner: a platter of flatbread, a clay bowl of lentils, and a small jar of honey that she bartered from a neighbor. On special nights, you might have meat, a piece of salted fish, or if luck shines, a sliver of goat or goose. Tonight it's lentils again, with garlic and onion for flavor. You're not complaining. After dragging stone all day, it tastes like a feast fit for Pharaoh himself. You tear the bread into chunks, dipping it into the lentils, savoring the rich, earthy taste. The children crowd around, chattering about their adventures: how they chased a stray dog through the lanes, how they sneaked into the bakery to beg for scraps of warm bread, how little Tepi found a shiny pebble and is convinced it's a piece of the god's treasure. You nod and smile, letting their stories wash over you. After hours of hauling lifeless blocks of limestone, their small joys are a balm. Nearby, your wife tells you the gossip of the day. The brewer's daughter is promised in marriage to a scribe's son, a match everyone says is too ambitious. A neighbor broke his arm hauling water, and the local healer wrapped it with reeds and honey. And rumor has it that the overseer was caught sneaking extra beer rations from the storehouse. You laugh at that one, picturing the pompous man caught with foam on his chin. Beer, in fact, is the lifeblood of the village, thick, cloudy, more like liquid bread
Then the frothy drink, future civilizations will invent it, fuels the workers as much as onions and garlic do. Every evening, jars are passed around, and laughter grows louder as the jars grow emptier. By the second cup, sore muscles seem to ache less. By the third, Manes is standing on a stool, acting out a dramatic reenactment of today's near disaster on the pyramid ramp, complete with wild arm gestures and fake cries for help. The children roar with laughter. Even the elders shake their heads, trying not to smile.
Sometimes the evening brings music. A man plucks at a lute like instrument, another beats a drum, and voices rise in song. The rhythms are hypnotic, carrying you into something like trance. You sway, clapping along half asleep and yet wide awake. Historians will later debate whether these nightly gatherings were organized rituals or just spontaneous bursts of community joy. To you, it hardly matters. It's simply the rhythm of life, a way of turning exhaustion into celebration. After dinner, you step outside with your eldest son. The air is cooler now, the desert stars emerging in a sky so clear it looks like polished stone. You point out constellations, the bull, the falcon, the scarab telling him stories you half remember from priests and elders. He listens wide eyed, clutching your hand. Maybe one day he'll work the ramps beside you, though you hope he'll find a path less backbreaking.
Still, there's pride in knowing that your children will grow up watching the pyramid rise their lives entwined with its stone like threads in a tapestry. Later, the village settles into quieter rhythms. Some men collapse onto mats as soon as they finish eating, snoring within minutes. Others linger by the fires, trading stories or singing until the embers glow low. Women tuck children into reed mats, soothing them with lullabies older than memory. Cats prowl the alleys, hoping to snatch scraps of fish or bread. The smell of smoke, garlic, and sweat hangs heavy in the air, oddly comforting in its familiarity. Your own bed is simple a mat of reeds stuffed with straw and covered by a coarse linen sheet. It's scratchy, yes, but after 12 hours of labor, it feels like a cloud. You stretch out muscles, groaning, and close your eyes. The chatter of neighbors fades into a background hum, like the soft buzz of cicadas just before sleep claims you reflect on something curious.
For all the hardship, the blisters, the endless hauling, the life here has its moments of warmth. The village is not just survival, it's family, laughter, music, and community. The pyramid may belong to Pharaoh, but these evenings belong to you. One last thought drifts through your mind. Historians in the future will argue endlessly about the workers. Were they slaves, conscripts, or paid laborers? You know the truth, though. You are not chained, not beaten into submission. You are a worker, compensated in food, shelter, and dignity. Perhaps it's not perfect, but it is a life, your life. And tonight, belly full of lentils and beer, you'll sleep as soundly as any king. The stars wheel above the desert, the fires die down, the village sighs into silence, and you, one tiny builder among thousands, dream of stone of songs and of the eternal pyramid rising under your weary hands.
Rituals, superstitions, and the sacred pyramid. The next morning begins as always with the rising sun flaring over the eastern horizon. But before you even touch a block of limestone, before your muscles remember the rhythm of pulling, lifting, and sweating, you take part in something that reminds you why you're here in the first place ritual. The pyramid may look like an endless mountain of stone to your aching back, but in the eyes of priests and pharaoh alike, it is a ladder to eternity, a sacred bridge between the realm of mortals and the divine heavens. Every morning, priests in spotless white linen come to the work site. They carry incense burners, their fragrant smoke curling against the clear desert air. They sprinkle water from the Nile onto the dust, muttering words that you barely understand but know are meant to keep chaos at bay. Without these rituals, no one dares to begin work.
You and your fellow workers stand quietly while the priests chant. A few of the more pious among you bow your heads. Others simply wait impatiently, eager to get moving and earn the day's rations. Still, even the most skeptical of men wouldn't dare skip the blessing. Everyone has heard the stories of men who mocked the gods, who worked before the ritual finished, only to be crushed beneath a falling stone. Coincidence, maybe, but in a world where the sun itself is believed to be a god rowing across the sky, no one takes chances. Superstitions seep into every corner of life here. You rub a scarab amulet hanging from your neck before pulling your first load of the day. The man beside you whispers a quick prayer to Hathor, goddess of motherhood, before lifting, hoping she'll protect his aching back. Another refuses to walk under the shadow of the unfinished pyramid ramp, convinced it brings misfortune. If you accidentally spill beer before drinking, you tip a little extra onto the ground, a gift for the spirits that haunt the sands. Better safe than sorry. At midday, as the sun beats down, priests climb to a makeshift altar at the pyramid's base. There they offer bread onions and sometimes even a slaughtered ox, letting its blood spill into the dust. As an offering to the gods, you watch with mixed feelings. Hunger gnaws at your belly, but you know the food is meant for forces far greater than you. Sometimes scraps from these rituals find their way to the workers' bones, boiled for broth, leftover bread distributed as a blessing. Whether divine or simply practical, it feels like an extra gift on long days. The pyramid itself is wrapped in layers of meaning. To you, it is a job, a back-breaking monument that grows one block at a time. To the priests, it is the horizon-made stone, the stairway for Pharaoh's soul to ascend to the afterlife.
Every line of the pyramid echoes cosmic order, its base aligned perfectly with the four cardinal directions, its sides sloping to mirror the rays of the sun. Historians of the far future will still argue whether the Great Pyramid is an astronomical observatory, a tomb, or something else entirely. To you, it feels like all of those at once. When you haul stone, you sometimes glance upward and feel a shiver of awe. Each block, each cut of limestone is more than labor. It's part of an eternal structure meant to last until the end of time. Pharaoh himself may walk among the gods because of the steps you carve today. That thought both humbles you and makes you stand a little straighter. But it isn't just the grand rituals that shape your days, the little ones matter too. Before you eat your lunch, you knock on your bread 3 times to drive away evil spirits. When a fellow worker sneezes, everyone mutters blessings as if the act of breathing too forcefully might expel part of the soul.
If a vulture circles overhead, men pause and stare, debating whether it's a good omen, the god Nekbet watching over you, or a bad one, a sign of death nearby. Nobody agrees, but everyone feels uneasy until the bird flies away. One evening, as the sun sets blood red over the desert, a strange rumor spreads through the village. Someone swears they saw a shadowy figure walking on the unfinished slope of the pyramid long after work had ended. Another insists it was no human, but a ghost of a worker crushed days earlier. Children whisper about cursed stones, haunted tools, and angry spirits who punish laziness. You chuckle nervously, but later, when the desert wind howls around your hut, you find yourself clutching your scarab amulet a little tighter. Religion and superstition are woven so tightly into your daily life that it's impossible to separate them. Is the priest's blessing just a practical way to gather workers, or is it really the voice of the gods? Is spilling beer an accident or an insult to the spirits? Historians still argue whether pyramid workers truly believed in every ritual or simply went along to avoid trouble. From where you stand, the answer is obvious in a land where gods control the river, the harvest, and even the sun belief isn't optional. It's survival. On rare days, festivals break the routine. Work halts, and the village is swept into celebration. Musicians play, dancers whirl, and beer flows like the Nile in flood season. Priests tell stories of Osiris, the god who conquered death, and of Ra, who must fight the serpent Apophis each night to rise again. You join in laughing, singing, forgetting your sore muscles for a while. These festivals remind you that the pyramid is more than a job. It's part of a cosmic drama, one where even ordinary builders like you have a role.
Late at night, lying on your reed mat, you stare up at the roof of your hut and imagine Pharaoh's soul climbing the steps of the pyramid, each stone you've placed becoming a rung in his ladder to the stars. You wonder if ordinary souls like yours will ever ascend so high. Maybe not, but perhaps in some small way, your labor binds you to eternity. After all, when the desert wind scours the land and dynasties crumble, the pyramid will remain its stones, whispering the names of those who raised it. Maybe that's enough immortality for one lifetime. As sleep takes you, the chants of the priests and the clatter of amulets echo faintly in your ears. Rituals, superstitions, sacred geometry, all of it swirls together in a dream where the pyramid is both tomb and temple ladder and mountain burden and blessing. You drift off believing, as countless others do, that you're not just moving stone, you're shaping the destiny of a king and perhaps in some hidden way, your own.
My You wake to the same sound that has marked every morning since the first stone was dragged from the quarry, the bark of orders, the snap of a whip, and the rustle of reed pens scratching across papyrus. You know, even before you rub the grit of sleep from your eyes, that today will not be measured in hours, but in numbers. Numbers of blocks moved, numbers of men present, numbers of rations distributed. The overseers and the scribes, the twin forces of lash and ink, wait for you as surely as the sun waits to rise over the desert. You shuffle into line with your gang sand, still clinging to your skin, and there they are, the overseers standing taller than anyone else, not because of height, but because of the way they hold themselves, shoulders back, rods of polished wood or coils of leather dangling at their sides. Their linen kilts are cleaner, brighter, and far more expensive than anything you'll ever wear.
Their eyes scan the line like hawks scanning the dunes for prey, and you feel the weight of that gaze settle on your shoulders. It is a gaze that makes men move faster even before the whip cracks, and there just behind them, shaded under linen awnings so their delicate skin doesn't burn, sit the scribes. They are pale, smooth handed, with reed pens poised like daggers above palettes of red and black ink. Their hands never blister, never bleed, never ache from hauling stone, but in their neat little lines of hieroglyphs, birds, snakes, eyes, feathers, they hold your whole existence. A whip may raise a scar, but a scribe's omission from his scroll can erase your rations, and that in truth is worse. You can work with scars. You cannot work without bread. The overseers bark your names one by one, though sometimes they don't bother with names at all. They know you as arms, as backs, as muscle that can push and haul you there faster. They shout, and the crack of leather splits the morning air. No one wants to be the target of the lash, not because the pain is unbearable, you've grown used to pain, but because of the shame. Everyone turns to look. Everyone is grateful that it wasn't them, and secretly, everyone promises themselves they'll push harder so it never is. But it isn't just the lash that keeps you moving, it's the ink. You've watched scribes tilt their heads, squint at you, and then calmly write something down. They don't even tell you what. They just scratch with that soft hiss of pan on papyrus, and suddenly your ration of beer is thinner or your family's grain is lighter. The overseer may bruise your skin for a day, but the scribe can starve your children for a week. You almost prefer the whip. At least the whip is honest. You know, of course, that not all overseers are monsters. Some are clever. They know just when to press harder and when to ease off. They'll let you take an extra gulp of water in the heat if it means you'll haul another block before sunset. They'll even mutter the rare word of praise, a gruff good haul, as a stone settles perfectly into place. That single crumb of approval carries you through another week. Humans, you realize, are far easier to move than stone. You just need to pull at the right levers. The scribes, too, aren't all soulless accountants. You've seen one fight on behalf of a sick worker, arguing that his family still deserved their rations while he recovered. You've seen another quietly slip a loaf of bread to a man who had lost his. But these are rare moments like drops of cool water in a desert. More often, their eyes are flat and calculating, as if every worker is already reduced to a number in their columns. Historians still argue whether scribes like these saw themselves as loyal servants of Pharaoh or simply men guarding their own privileged place above the sweating masses.
Either way, their neat little signs in ink are chains, just as binding as the lash. By midday, when the sun turns the stone ramps into griddles, you see the overseers and the scribes huddled together, comparing notes. The overseer rattles off numbers, so many blocks moved, so many men fainted, so many lashes delivered. The scribe records it all, lips pressed tight. The combination of their powers, the whip and the ledger, feels almost godlike. They don't lift stone, yet they decide how heavy your load will be tomorrow. They don't bleed in the sun, yet they decide whether your children will eat. They don't labor yet. Without them, the labor would unravel into chaos. It is a cruel paradox that the men who never touch the stone may be the most essential to raising it skyward. One day, when exhaustion makes your grip falter, the rope slips from your hands, and the block lurches dangerously. The overseer is on you in an instant, his whip cracking across your back with such force that your knees nearly buckle. The gang goes silent. They all feel that lash in their bones, but are relieved it isn't them. And then the scribe appears, crouching low, to look into your face. He doesn't scold, he doesn't shout, he just writes. Later that evening, your ration is lighter. No one explains. You don't need an explanation. The ink speaks loudly enough. You've heard whispers among workers that some overseers are corrupt, lining their own bellies with stolen rations, that some scribes keep second families hidden, fed by phantom names written into the rolls. Whether true or not, the rumors are enough to make your teeth grind. After all, the lash and ink that hold you in chains also provide them with opportunities for power. The pyramid may be Pharaoh's monument, but the overseers and scribes are carving their own monuments of influence in the shadows.
And yet you remind yourself they are as bound to Pharaoh's will as you are. If the workers collapse, the overseers will be blamed. If the numbers don't add up, the scribes will feel Pharaoh's wrath. They walk a line between mercy and brutality, between truth and deception. You wonder sometimes if they sleep easily at night or if the weight of all those numbers presses down as heavily on their chests as stone presses down on yours. Still, for you, their presence is inescapable. You haul stone, they haul Pharaoh's will. Their whips leave scars on your body, their pins leave scars on your life. And you realize, not without bitterness, that when the pyramid is finished, when Pharaoh's body is sealed away and his soul sails to the stars, history may never speak your name, but somewhere in some storeroom, a scrap of papyrus may survive with a neat little note: gang of the east side hauled 40 blocks. Worker absent,
That will be your immortality, not carved into stone, but scribbled in ink. As you trudge back to your hut in the fading light, the overseer's whistle still ringing in your ears, the thought strikes you that the pyramid is really two monuments. One is stone rising higher every day. The other is paper rolled up and stacked in archives. The stone will tell of Pharaoh's glory. The ink will tell of your sweat, your rations, your punishments. And maybe, just maybe, the ink will last even longer than the stone. The day begins again before you are ready for it, as it always does. And by now, you've lost the luxury of wondering whether you are rested. Rest itself is an illusion in this camp, a fleeting thing stolen in scraps of fitful sleep, broken by the snores of neighbors, the whine of mosquitoes, or the distant shout of some overseer making his rounds, even in the night. You rise, stretch your stiff limbs, and step into the procession of weary men already shuffling toward the ramps, where stones wait like patient predators. Each block seems to watch you approach, knowing it will consume your strength before the sun sets. Today, though, something different fills the air. Not the crack of whips, not the bark of overseers, but the deep, resonant sound of voices rising together in rhythm. The gangs are singing. The songs are not sweet. They are not the kind you'd hum to children. They are raw, pounding chants sung from bellies and lungs that burn in the dry desert air. You hear one gang start, "Heave, brothers, heave," and another responds, "Pull, brothers, pull." Before long, the entire ramp vibrates with voices, chants bouncing off the limestone like drums. It is in these chants, these work songs, that you find your pace. Each syllable marks a step, each pause a breath. You dig your heels into the sand, lean forward, and push in time with the others.
The stone groans, then moves inch by inch. The overseers may think their whips keep order, but you know the truth. It's the rhythm, the songs, the heartbeat of 100 men moving as one. Without it, the ropes would slacken, the men would falter, and the pyramid would crawl instead of rise. The lyrics shift depending on who begins them. Sometimes they're praises to Pharaoh, half sincere, half survival tactic. Pharaoh is mighty, Pharaoh is strong. Sometimes they're just nonsense little jokes to lighten the burden. This stone's as heavy as my mother in law. The men laugh, though you've heard the same joke a dozen times. And sometimes, when the overseers are out of earshot, the chants take a sharper turn. Muttered lines about hunger, about aching backs, about how the pyramid might just be taller than Pharaoh's ego. Those verses vanish quickly if an overseer approaches, swallowed by sudden hymns to the gods, but you've heard them and you've added your voice.
Historians still argue whether these chants were purely functional, just a way to coordinate footsteps, or whether they carried coded protests, a hidden record of workers' frustration beneath the surface of obedience. The truth you suspect is both. A man can sing to keep rhythm and still lace his words with bitterness. After all, music doesn't just move stones, it moves feelings too. Your throat grows hoarse after hours of chanting, but you don't stop. The song pulls you forward, even when your muscles threaten to give out. You find yourself carried by the current of voices, a drop in a river, inseparable from the rest. And strangely, it comforts you. Alone, you would crumble beneath the weight. Together, you can bear it. The rhythm tricks your body into thinking the stone is lighter, and maybe in a way it is. By midday, the sun pounds overhead with merciless weight. Sweat blinds your eyes, your tunic sticks to your skin, and your voice cracks like the limestone under the chisel.
Yet still the chants roll on. Sometimes one gang starts stomping, turning the ramp into a drum. Sometimes another adds clapping hands, striking calloused palms like percussion. You realize you are part of an orchestra made not of instruments but of bodies, feet, hands, throats, hearts. It is noisy, crude, and beautiful in its own raw way. And then comes the break, the precious pause when water jars are passed and bread is handed out. Men slump in the thin shade, their voices rasping, but even then, someone will hum a low tune, soft as the wind. You catch yourself humming too, almost involuntarily. It is as if silence itself has become unbearable, as if you need the rhythm to remind your body it can still move, still breathe. You remember that once back in your village, songs marked festivals, births, and weddings. Here, songs mark survival. They are the only feast you can still afford. After the break, the overseers urge you back to work. The chanting begins again, rougher now, slower, but it builds as the stone crawls forward. And in those moments when a block finally settles into its place, when 100 hands release the ropes, and the earth seems to sigh with relief, the song shifts into a cheer. You don't shout because you are ordered to. You shout because if you don't, the silence will crush you more than the stone ever could. There are even stories whispered among the workers, half legend, half truth, that sometimes Pharaoh himself could hear the songs drifting across the desert. Imagine that the divine ruler, living God reclining in his palace, listening to the chants of dusty men dragging his afterlife into being. Did he hear praise or complaint? Did he even care? Some say he smiled, believing the voices were proof of loyalty. Others claim he scowled, suspecting mockery. Historians still argue whether pharaohs truly understood the life of their workers or whether the songs were simply background noise to their glory. You sweating in the sun suspect it was the latter. Still, when the day finally ends, when the overseer blows the whistle and the last block is secured, it's the songs that echo in your ears, not the whips, not the scribe's pens, not even the groaning of stone. It is the rhythm of your fellow men, voices rising against exhaustion. You walk back to your hut, lips cracked, throat raw, but humming anyway. You hum because you have to, because without that hum, the silence would remind you of the truth that tomorrow another block waits and another until the sky itself seems made of stone. And as you lie down on your mat, muscles trembling, the chants roll in your mind like waves. Heave, brothers, heave, pull, brothers, pull. They are not hymns of beauty nor ballads to be sung for queens.
They are survival songs, the music of the pyramid's bones, and maybe just maybe they are the only part of your life that will live longer than the stone. For when the pyramid crumbles, when sand buries Pharaoh's glory, the sound of men singing under the sun will still linger in the desert wind. You can almost hear it now, drifting across time, a chorus of weary voices calling to you, heave, brother, heave, pull, brother, pull. The night falls hard in the workers' village, but it never truly silences. The desert cools quickly, the day's searing heat replaced by a chill that slips through every crack of the mud brick huts. Men huddle together, wrapped in coarse linen, listening to the faint cries of jackals in the distance. You try to close your eyes, but the ache in your back won't let you. The day's labor clings to your bones like wet sand, impossible to shake off. Yet even in exhaustion, life stirs in the village. Fires glow dimly in clay braziers. Women, wives, sisters, daughters tend to the evening meal, lentil stew, coarse bread, and if the gods are kind, a few dried figs. The smell drifts into the air, earthy and humble. You sit with your gang, your fellow laborers, in a tight circle around a jar of beer. It is thin and sour, more like porridge than drink, but it is enough to wash away the dust lodged in your throat. As you eat, voices rise in conversation. The men speak of home of fields left untended, of wives awaiting their return. Some argue about whose village brews better beer. Others boast about how high their ramp has risen compared to the next cruise, but beneath the chatter lies something deeper questions that no one dares ask too loudly. Why must Pharaoh's tomb be taller than the mountains? Why do we break ourselves for a monument none of us will ever enter? You glance around carefully before leaning closer to the men nearest you. In whispers, they trade rumors. One man insists the priests claim Pharaoh's pyramid is not just a tomb, but a ladder to the gods. Another mutters that it's all nonsense, that it's just a contest of pride, each pharaoh desperate to outshine the last. Then there are darker stories, hushed but insistent, about workers collapsing under the strain, their bodies quietly removed so construction never halts. You know these tales are true, for you've seen a man fall his chest, crushed by a rolling stone. By morning, he was gone, as though the desert itself had swallowed him whole. Still, laughter finds its way into the night. Men joke about overseers mimicking their voices, their swaggering gaits, their polished whips. They laugh because laughter is survival. Without it, despair would seep in like cold through the hut walls. Someone produces a drum made from stretched hide, and soon rhythms echo in the air. The beat recalls the work songs of the day, but now it is freer, playful. A young man begins to dance, stomping his feet and twirling his arms in mock imitation of Pharaoh himself. The circle erupts in laughter so loud that even the guards turn their heads, but they do not intervene. Guards know as well as workers that a man who laughs will rise tomorrow, ready to pull again. Later, after the meal and the laughter, a quieter ritual takes place. One of the older men, his face lined by both sun and years, begins to tell stories, not of Pharaoh, nor of pyramids, but of the gods and the old kings. He tells of Ra, who sails the sun across the sky each day, and of Osiris, ruler of the underworld. He speaks of how the pyramids themselves might one day guide Pharaoh's soul to join these gods. His voice is deep and slow, his words carrying weight. Around him, men lean closer. Children hush their whispers, and the crackle of the fire becomes the only other sound. You find yourself pulled into these stories, your exhaustion momentarily forgotten. The old man speaks not just of gods, but of men, long gone, workers like you, who once carved temples or raised obelisks. He insists that though names may be forgotten, the hands that built Egypt are never lost. His words soothe you, wrapping your suffering in a blanket of purpose. Perhaps this is why you endure, because even if Pharaoh's glory fades, the work itself binds you to eternity. Historians would later puzzle over these nightly lives of pyramid builders. They debate whether workers were slaves or hired laborers, whether they suffered under cruelty or enjoyed relative care. Archaeologists uncover bakeries, breweries, and even medical huts in the workers' village, evidence that life was not wholly misery. You live it, and you know the truth is complicated. Yes, there is food, shelter, even medicine, but it is given because Pharaoh needs you strong enough to drag his stones. It is generosity wrapped in necessity, kindness only as deep as the limestone blocks themselves. You step outside after the storytelling ends. The desert sky stretches vast above you, painted with stars brighter than any torch. The great river gleams faintly in the distance, reflecting slivers of moonlight. You breathe in the night air, cooler, now sharp and dry, and it tastes like freedom. Freedom you can never fully reach. Somewhere beyond those stars, the priests say, Pharaoh will live forever. But what of you? Will your name survive? Will your children's children remember you as anything more than a shadow who once strained against ropes? You lie back on the sand and stare upward. The pyramid rises in the distance, a black silhouette against the glittering sky. Already it towers above the desert, though it is far from finished. You marvel at its size, and a strange thought creeps into your mind. It is not Pharaoh who lifts this monument, but you. Your sweat, your blood, your voice. In the work songs, these are the true mortar binding stone to stone. Pharaoh may claim it as his tomb, but in truth, it is a monument to the thousands who built it. Sleep comes slowly, but when it does, it brings dreams. In them, you see the pyramid, finished gleaming white under the sun, its capstone blazing like fire. Crowds gather to marvel at it to praise Pharaoh, but in your dream, their words are drowned out by the echo of chants, the songs of workers' voices, like your own carried on the desert wind. The pyramid may bear Pharaoh's name, but the sound of your voice is woven into its stones. And in that dream, you realize something profound. Perhaps immortality does not belong only to kings and gods. Perhaps it belongs also to those who build, who endure, who leave behind traces invisible to rulers, but eternal to time itself. When the pyramid crumbles, when Pharaoh's name fades into dust, the memory of your struggle will still linger in the silence of the stones. For though no one will know your name, they will know your work, and in that you too will have cheated death. The sun has not yet risen, but already the village stirs. A rooster crows, dogs bark faintly in the distance, and the smell of baking bread drifts through the cool morning air. Your eyes open slowly, heavy with fatigue, yet trained by routine to awaken at this hour. Another day of labor waits for you, another day of pulling ropes, straining muscles, and answering the call of Pharaoh's monument. But today feels different. Today, a strange awareness lingers in your chest, born from last night's dream, the thought that perhaps you too are writing yourself into eternity. The overseers march down the narrow lanes of the workers' huts, their sandals slapping against the earth, their voices sharp as whips. Up to the ramp they shout, and the men obey. Some shuffle with reluctance, others stretch and yawn, a few already singing fragments of the work songs they will soon need. You follow, feeling the sand cool beneath your bare feet. The eastern horizon glows faintly with a pale ribbon of light, promising another day of merciless sun. As you walk, the pyramid looms larger and larger ahead. By now, it dominates the landscape, dwarfing even the tallest palm trees. Each day, it grows higher, as if Pharaoh's will alone stretches it toward the heavens. From afar, it is magnificent, smooth, angular, almost impossible in its scale. But up close, the illusion fades. You see the dust, the chips of stone, the crude scaffolding lashed together with rope. You see the men bent and sweating their bodies, straining like oxen as they heave stones into place. Magnificence, you realize, is often made of broken backs. You reach your gang station, where today you will help drag blocks from the quarry toward the ramp. The block before you is massive, its weight obvious even before the ropes are tied. Dozens of men gather around hands, gripping rough hemp feet, digging into sand. A foreman shouts, the drum begins its pounding, and in unison the men chant as they pull, heave, heave. The stone lurches forward inch by inch, sliding over the sanded wooden sled beneath it. Sweat stings your eyes, muscles burn, lungs ache, but the chant drives you forward. In this moment, there is no Pharaoh, no overseer, no gods. There is only the rope, the stone, and the unity of men pulling as one. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher, punishing merciless. Skin darkens and cracks beneath it. Some men faint, collapsing in the sand, but they are quickly dragged aside so the work does not falter. Priests walk among the workers, sprinkling cool water and chanting blessings to the gods as though divine words could ease the pain in your hands. At midday, the work halts for food, bread, beer, onions. You eat quickly, hungrily, wiping sweat from your brow. with a forearm streaked white with limestone dust.
It is then, as you chew coarse bread, that you notice something on the horizon. A caravan approaches, winding its way across the desert road. Soldiers flank the procession, their spears gleaming. In the center rides a figure draped in fine linen, shaded by a canopy of woven reeds. Whispers ripple among the workers. Could it be Pharaoh himself? The thought sends a shiver down your spine. The caravan halts at the base of the pyramid. The figure steps down, and though you cannot see clearly from your place, you feel the air change. Overseers straighten, priests bow, soldiers snap to attention. A royal presence is among you. Word spreads quickly. It is not Pharaoh, but his vizier, the highest servant of the throne. He has come to inspect the work. The vizier climbs the ramp, his entourage at his heels. He surveys the blocks, the scaffolding, the endless lines of sweating men. His face is unreadable, carved in stone, like the very monuments he commands. For a long moment, he says nothing.
Then, in a voice that carries across the sight, he proclaims, Pharaoh is pleased. The gods are pleased. Your labor binds Egypt to eternity. The men cheer, though the cheer feels hollow in your throat. The vizier's words are like the bread you eat, coarse, necessary, sustaining, but never enough. What does it mean for Pharaoh to be pleased when your back is breaking? What does it mean for the gods to be satisfied when your children go hungry, and yet part of you swells with pride? For in that proclamation lies acknowledgement, however faint, that you are more than dust. You are a builder of eternity. The vizier departs and the day resumes, but the memory lingers as you pull again, chanting, heaving, sweating. His words coil in your mind. Your labor binds Egypt to eternity. Perhaps it's true. Perhaps long after your bones are dust, long after Pharaoh's name is forgotten, the stones will remain whispering silently of the hands that set them in place.
The work ends as the sun sinks low, bleeding red across the desert sky. You return to the village, your body trembling with exhaustion. Tonight, the fires burn brighter, fueled by scraps of wood carried from the quarry. Men gather once more around jars of beer, voices, loud songs, raucous. But something has shifted in the air. The vizier's visit has stirred pride as well as resentment. Some men boast that they will be remembered as builders of the greatest monument on earth. Others grumble that Pharaoh takes glory while they bear pain. The old man tells stories again, weaving myths of gods and kings, but tonight his words mingle uneasily with the murmurs of doubt. Later, you step outside into the night. The pyramid glows faintly in the moonlight, its unfinished peak jagged against the stars. You stare at it, and once more you feel that strange awareness, a sense that though Pharaoh may claim this monument, it is yours too. Each block is a memory, each layer a heartbeat.
You wonder if centuries from now, someone will look upon it and think not only of kings, but of the countless hands that shaped it. You lie down the cool sand, cradling your weary body. Sleep takes you, and with it, dreams. But tonight, the dreams are different. You see not Pharaoh's glory, but your own. You see the pyramid completed, and you see future generations standing before it, marveling at its size. They speak of mystery who built this how, and though they cannot name you, you hear them speak of the workers, the thousands of lives woven into stone. In that moment, you understand immortality does not require a name. It requires only a mark upon the world that cannot be erased. When you wake, the sun will rise, and you will return to the ropes, the chants, the endless march of stones. But deep in your heart, you will know a truth Pharaoh himself may never see, that while he sought to build a tomb to escape death, you and your brothers have built something greater. You have built memory itself. And long after Pharaoh's bones are dust, Long after his name is carved away by time, your work will remain silent, eternal, defiant against oblivion. The pyramid is not just his, it is yours. The morning sun slices across the horizon in a thin band of gold, spilling over the Nile and the dusty expanse of desert that stretches toward the horizon. Your body aches in places you did not even know existed, but the sound of the overseer's wooden staff clapping against the stone brings you upright. There is no time for sluggishness, not today. Today, the work site buzzes with a strange energy. The pyramid rises higher than ever, its sides beginning to taper into that iconic slant, the slope that will one day gleam white beneath polished limestone. You know, as you rub grit from your eyes, that this is no longer the foundation of a dream. It is becoming the dream itself, visible in stone. The march begins feet, trudging in unison. Already dust coats your legs before you reach the ramp where the day's first block waits. This one is smaller than yesterday's monster, but it's still heavy enough to demand dozens of hands. Ropes are looped, shoulders lowered, and a familiar chant takes shape. The foreman beats his drum steady insistent, and the block begins its slow crawl up the incline. Sand hisses beneath it, the sled groaning. You lean your whole body weight into the rope, feeling the burn in your palms, the sting of sweat dripping into your eyes. Nearby, the priests stand again, their linen robes flaring in the morning wind. They chant hymns to the gods of earth and sky, raising their arms toward the unfinished summit. Ta, guide the builders. Ra, grant us strength. Osiris, remember these names. You catch that last line, and it snags in your mind. Remember these names. What names? Pharaoh's certainly. The nobles, of course, but never yours. The gods do not whisper the names of rope pullers, stone haulers, dust eaters, or do they? You tighten your grip, half wishing Osiris really is listening. The heat builds, and by midday, your skin feels like leather pulled across a fire. Beer and onions dull the edge of hunger, but do little for thirst. Some workers smear animal fat across their shoulders as a crude protection, joking that it makes them shine like Pharaoh's statues. Historians still argue whether workers truly had access to such ointments, but you know that men will use anything for relief when the sun threatens to peel them alive. You laugh along because laughter is as necessary as bread. Without it, the weight of the stone would crush not just your back, but your spirit. Later in the day, your crew is assigned to the upper ramp, where the blocks must be positioned with delicate precision. Here, the illusion of grandeur takes shape. The foreman crouches, barking commands as men wedge wooden levers beneath the block, nudging it millimeter by millimeter into line. You crouch beside them, shoulder pressed against cold stone heaving when the order comes. Finally, the block thuds into place, a perfect fit beside its brothers. The cheer that rises is genuine, full of relief and pride. You run a hand across the surface, and for just a second, imagine that it is smooth to the touch, as it will be when polished casing stones are finally set. Evening comes, painted in orange and violet streaks. The pyramid, glowing in that light, looks almost finished, though you know there are still years of toil ahead. Still, the sight stirs something deep. You glance at your companions, their faces streaked with dust, their hands blistered and raw, and you realize that each of you is carving yourselves into eternity, one stone at a time. Pharaoh may never speak your name, but perhaps the gods will remember the sweat that dripped into this sand. Night descends, and once again, the village comes alive. Fires flicker, beer jars are passed around, and voices rise in song. The old man, the storyteller, settles into his usual spot. Tonight, his tale is darker, tinged with unease. He tells of workers in generations past, men who toiled under cruel masters, their bones ground into dust with nothing left to mark their passing. His eyes gleam in the firelight as he leans forward, whispering, "But this time is different. Look around you. You do not build a house of mud or a statue that will crumble. You build the ladder. Pharaoh climbs to eternity." The men nod, some with pride, others with a bitterness that no beer can drown. You sip, listening, and somewhere in your chest unease grows. What if this ladder leads only to Pharaoh's immortality, not yours? Historians still argue whether the pyramids were truly built by willing workers or enslaved laborers, and in that uncertainty lies your truth. You are both, bound by duty, yet also bound by awe. You hate the stone, and yet you love the thought of leaving something eternal behind. When the fire dies and the men drift into sleep, you remain awake a little longer, gazing at the unfinished pyramid under the stars. It is jagged, imperfect, raw. And yet you know deep down that future generations will not see the cracks or the sweat or the broken bodies. They will see only the perfection, the triumph, the impossible miracle of stone reaching for heaven. They will stand in silence before it, their hands tracing the cool limestone, and they will wonder who built this, how, why. And though your name will never cross their lips, you know the answer will echo quietly across time. You did. Men like you, hands like yours, voices chanting in rhythm ropes, digging into skin laughter shared in dust and sweat. That is your immortality, not in name, but in deed. You finally lie back, the stars sharp and brilliant above. Sleep pulls you under, not as a thief tonight, but as a friend. The pyramid rises in your dreams again, but this time you see it finished, gleaming white in the sunlight. Pharaoh lies inside, silent forever. But outside, children laugh and play, priests chant, and strangers marvel. The stone does not whisper Pharaoh's name, it whispers the memory of labor, of sacrifice, of you. And with that thought, you drift deeper, knowing tomorrow will demand your body again. But tonight, at least, your spirit feels a little lighter. The morning air bites at your skin with a rare coolness, almost a kindness from the gods before the sun inevitably rises to its throne. You stretch your limbs, every tendon sore, every joint stiff, and you wonder, not for the first time, how many years your body can endure this. The pyramid already towers above the desert like some jagged mountain, its ramp curling higher, steeper, more treacherous with each day. You blink the dust from your eyes, push down the aches, and remind yourself it is not your place to wonder when the end comes. It is your place to climb, to pull, to bleed, to build. The work today is unlike anything before. Your crew has been moved to the inner passages, narrow corridors carved deep into the pyramid's belly. Until now, you have worked under the open sky with the roar of hundreds of men and the burn of the sun on your neck. But here in the bowels of the structure, silence swallows you whole, torches sputter, shadows stretch, and the air feels heavy with centuries yet to come.
The scent of stone dust and resin fills your nose as you shuffle forward, your bare feet echoing softly on the limestone floor. Your task is to help slide massive granite beams into place above a burial chamber. These beams, dark and unyielding, were hauled all the way from quarries near Aswan, hundreds of miles away. You marvel for a moment at their journey, loaded onto boats along the Nile, dragged across ramps and sand, and now here inside the secret heart of the pyramid. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used lubricated tracks or wooden rollers to ease the beams into place. For you, it hardly matters. All you know is the strain in your shoulders, the searing pain in your thighs, the roar of the overseer's voice demanding more, faster, harder. The granite groans as it moves inch by inch down the sloping corridor.
You and the others press with your whole bodies, bracing against the stone, shoving with a desperation born from fear, fear of failure, fear of punishment, fear of being crushed beneath the block should it slip. Sweat blinds you, trickles down your back. Torches gutter from the sudden rush of air, throwing monstrous shadows of men and stone against the walls. It feels less like construction and more like some ritual, like forcing a god into its final resting place. At last, the block locks into its slot with a thunderous thud. The vibration runs through the walls, through the floor, through your bones. For a moment, silence holds. Then a ragged cheer erupts. You laugh too because the relief is overwhelming, but you notice the priests who have been watching. They do not cheer. They bow their heads, murmuring prayers, tracing hieroglyphs onto the wall with their fingers. The burial chamber feels different now, sealed sacred and no longer meant for living eyes. You shift uncomfortably. When you emerge back into the light, blinking at the brilliance of the sun, you breathe deeply, as though gulping the sky itself. The desert heat now feels almost merciful compared to the weight of shadows below. Some men joke that the pyramid has a hunger, that it eats stone sweat and men's lives, and that once you enter its belly, you are never quite the same. You laugh with them, but quietly the thought lingers. By midday, work shifts again, and you return to the outer ramp. The rhythm is familiar now, almost comforting, the creak of ropes, the slap of sandals, the chance to keep pace. But today, something unexpected happens. As your team hauls another block upward, a man in the line suddenly collapses his legs, buckling like reeds in the wind. For a second, everyone hesitates. Rope slackens, the sled jerks, and panic ripples. You grab the rope tighter, shouting, urging the others to pull. And together you steady the block just before it can slide back down. The foreman curses, rushing to the fallen man. The worker groans faintly, his lips cracked, his skin hot as fire. Heat stroke. You know the signs. You felt the edge of it yourself many times. Quickly he is dragged aside, given water shaded by scraps of cloth. Some mutter that the gods chose him, that the pyramid demands offerings. Others shake their heads, saying it's just the sun and the strain. Historians still argue whether workers were treated as disposable or cared for by medics. But here in this moment, you see both truths. The man is tended to, yes, but his absence means the rest of you must pull harder tomorrow. The pyramid never rests, never slows, never forgives. When the day finally dies, you limp back to the workers' village. Tonight, the air feels strange, restless. The storyteller gathers you all again, his voice carrying across the flickering firelight. This time he speaks of the afterlife, not Pharaoh's grand journey to join Ra, but the fate of ordinary souls. Ordinary. The field of reeds, he says, his eyes gleaming. There the river flows clear. The crops grow tall, the air is cool, and no overseer cracks his staff. His words are a balm to your weary body. You close your eyes, imagining it endless fields, your back unburdened, your hands free of rope. A paradise built not of stone, but of peace. The others sigh in unison, some smiling, some scoffing. One man mutters, if such a place exists, it's not for us. It's for Pharaoh, just like this pyramid. The storyteller only shrugs his face, unreadable. Perhaps it's true. Perhaps the field of reeds is for kings alone, but perhaps not. You cling to the idea anyway, because without it, what is left? Just dust and more dust. When you lie down to sleep, your body throbs, but your mind drifts again to the pyramid. You picture it not as a tomb, but as a bridge, the bridge between this life and whatever waits beyond. You imagine your soul walking its glowing white slope, rising higher and higher until the stars open above and Ra himself extends his hand. You chuckle softly at the image of yourself, sweaty and blistered, shaking the god's hand like some old friend. A joke, perhaps, but it eases you into slumber. The pyramid looms in your dreams once more. This time you are not hauling, not sweating, not straining. You are standing at the top, looking down at the endless desert, the Nile winding like a green ribbon, and the stars spinning overhead. And for the first time, you feel light, not crushed beneath stone, but lifted by it. The first hint of dawn comes in silence. A thin blue light crawls over the desert horizon, casting long shadows across the half finished pyramid. You stir in your matte bones, aching skin, raw from sun and stone, and yet some invisible thread pulls you upright. The work waits, the pyramid waits. No matter how many centuries will pass, no matter what tales priests or scribes may tell for you and the men beside you, life is measured only in stones, dragged blocks, set sweat spilled, and breaths still drawn. Today, the foreman announces is to be different. Word passes through the ranks like fire through dry reeds. Pharaoh himself will come to see the progress. Instantly, every man stands straighter, though exhaustion hangs on your limbs like chains. The thought of the living God watching you, your hands, your ropes, your sleds, is both terror and pride. You wonder if your face will ever matter to him, or if you are simply another grain of sand beneath his feet. Still, your heart beats faster at the idea. The morning passes in frantic preparation. Overseers bark sharper than usual, striking the air with their staffs. Sledges are scrubbed clean, ropes soaked in water and tallow to shine and strengthen them.
Some men smear dust on their chests to cover bruises, unwilling to appear weak in the sight of the divine. Priests march along the ramps, scattering incense, chanting prayers to Thoth and Ta for wisdom and craftsmanship, to Ra for strength. The smell of burning resin coils upward, almost enough to hide the endless stench of sweat and dust. By mid morning, the Nile glitters in the distance, and a royal barge glides along its waters. The rumor becomes real. You and your crew are ordered to pull one of the largest stones, yet a gleaming block of Tura limestone, freshly cut, its surface smoother than your own skin. This will be the stone Pharaoh sees. This must be perfect. You wrap the rope around your shoulders, the fibers biting into your flesh. The foreman calls the rhythm, and together you lean forward, chanting in time with the others. The block resists, at first immovable, stubborn as the gods themselves. Then, inch by inch, it yields, groaning as it slides forward. The ramp trembles beneath its weight. Your feet slip in the dust, your muscles scream, but the chant grows louder, fiercer, almost defiant. Then you hear it, the distant sound of horns, drums, and voices raised in praise. You glance up, sweat dripping into your eyes, and see a procession of guards, priests, and attendants climbing toward the base of the pyramid. At their center walks Pharaoh. His golden headdress catches the sun so brightly it stings your eyes. Around him, the air seems to shimmer, as though Ra himself bends low to honor his son on earth. You dare not stare, but you cannot help yourself. Pharaoh is smaller than you imagined, his frame thin, but his presence swallows everything. He lifts a hand, and instantly silence falls across hundreds of workers. You and the others freeze mid-pull, ropes taut the block suspended in motion. The priests begin to sing, their voices high and trembling, while Pharaoh's eyes travel up the ramp toward the stone, toward you.
For a terrifying heartbeat, it feels as though he sees you, truly sees you. Then the moment is gone. His gaze turns upward to the towering pyramid behind you, as if he is looking not at men, but at eternity itself. The overseer barks an order, and you heave again. With one final push, The block slides into its place. The sound reverberates like thunder. A cheer rises hesitant at first, then swelling into a roar that shakes the air. For once, even the overseers do not strike it down. Pharaoh lifts both hands to the sky, and the priests proclaim blessings over the workers, over the stone, over the pyramid. For a fleeting moment, pride burns in your chest so brightly it eclipses pain. You feel not like a slave, not like a laborer, but like part of something divine. Later, when the procession withdraws and Pharaoh's barge disappears down the Nile, the work resumes as if nothing has changed, yet everything feels different. Whispers pass through the village that night. Some say Pharaoh's visit is a blessing, others that it is a curse. The storyteller, as always, gives voice to both sides. Pharaoh is eternal, he says, his voice carrying in the firelight. Through this pyramid, he will live forever, and so will we. Every block we place is a prayer, every scar on our bodies a hymn. Then he leans closer, his tone darker. But remember, Pharaoh is also a man, and men die. When he is gone, will his pyramid protect him? Or will the desert swallow it as it swallows all things? The men shift uneasily. You stare into the fire, the flames licking upward like the ramps themselves. You imagine the pyramid 1,000 years from now, 2,000, even more. Will it still stand gleaming white in the sun, or crumble to rubble forgotten? Will anyone remember your name, or the hundreds beside you who pulled until their bones cracked? That night you dream not of Pharaoh, not of gods, but of the pyramid itself.
It rises above you like a living thing, breathing, watching. In the dream, it speaks not in words, but in thunder and sand. It tells you that it will outlast Pharaoh, outlast kingdoms, outlast the Nile itself. And you, the smallest of its builders, will be a part of that eternity. You wake, sweating heart, pounding, unsure whether to feel blessed or cursed. The next morning, the pyramid looks the same as ever, but you do not. Something inside you has shifted, as if the dream carved a hieroglyph into your soul. You pull the ropes again, you chant, you sweat, you ache. But now, in every block, you see not just Pharaoh's tomb, but the shadow of forever. And still the question gnaws at you, is eternity worth the cost of today? The desert does not forgive. By the 14th season of building, you know this better than any scripture the priests chant. The wind whips across the plateau, hurling grains of sand so fine they cut your skin like glass.
The sun blazes overhead, pitiless and godlike, hammering heat into your back until your spine feels molten. Yet still you rise each morning, still you take the ropes, still you bow your body beneath the weight of stone. The pyramid grows taller, broader, hungrier. Each day it swallows blocks, and each night it looms over your dreams. Sometimes it feels alive, like a giant with an endless appetite, and you and the other men are nothing more than morsels it devours in silence. The ration's food grows thinner this year. The Nile has been unkind, flooding too low, leaving too little silt for crops. Bread is rationed with tighter fists, and the beer is watered down until it tastes like mud. You hear the whispers at night in the village, men plotting to steal grain from the storehouses, women crying because their children's bellies swell with hunger rather than strength. Still, the work does not slow. Overseers insist the pyramid must not stop. Pharaoh is eternal. They remind you their staff's tapping against the stone, and so your labor must be eternal. Some men grumble. A few vanish, deserting into the dunes, where jackals and thirst surely find them. Their names are never spoken again, as if silence erases rebellion. Others, broken by hunger, collapse mid-pull and are carried to the shade, where they are left to choose whether to rise again or die quietly in the sand. You learn to chew slowly to savor every crumb of barley bread as if it were a feast. You trade jokes with your fellows to trick your belly into laughter instead of growls. But deep down, you wonder how many more years your body can carry both hunger and stone. The storm one afternoon, the sky darkens, not with the blessing of rain, but with the curse of a Khamsin wind. It howls over the plateau with the fury of Seth, god of chaos. Dust turns the air thick and red, swallowing the pyramid itself in a veil of choking grit. Work halts. Men huddle against the stones, cloths wrapped around their faces, eyes squeezed shut as sand needles into every crease of their skin. The overseers shout their voices drowned by the storm. Ropes snap, sledges overturn, and a block of limestone, half dragged up a ramp, skids free and crashes down, killing 3 men before the storm buries them in dust. When the wind finally dies, silence falls heavy. The dead are uncovered, their faces sand scoured, their limbs twisted. No priest comes to chant for them. No official records their names. The bodies are dragged aside, laid in shallow graves, marked only by piles of rock. That night, you sit by the fire, the sandstorm still stinging in your lungs. The storyteller breaks the silence with a voice like gravel. The desert takes what it is owed, and it owes much more. Some men bow their heads in fear.
Others spit into the fire, cursing the gods. You simply sit, staring at the pyramid, rising from the darkness like a mountain made of bone. The priest's warning. Days later, a priest arrives from the capital, draped in linen white as the moon. His skin is smooth, his belly full, untouched by rope or stone. He walks among the workers, sprinkling water scented with lotus, murmuring prayers of protection. Then he climbs the ramp to address you all. The gods are displeased, he declares. Too many voices of doubt rise from this place. Too much grumbling is heard in the ears of Pharaoh. The pyramid is not merely a tomb, it is a ladder to the heavens. If you fail in your labor, you fail in your duty to the gods themselves. His words fall like stones. You feel the men around you stiffen, some nodding, others scowling.
You wonder which gods he means, the ones who watch from the stars, or the one who walks the palace halls in gold sandals. When the priest leaves, the overseer's lashes fall heavier. Doubt becomes more dangerous than hunger. Yet in whispers behind huts and fires, men continue to ask the same question: why must we suffer for a man's eternity? The dream of rebellion. One night, exhausted beyond sleep, you lie beneath the stars and listen to the murmurs around you. A group of workers speak of refusing to pull the sledges, of dropping the ropes and walking into the desert as one. They cannot whip all of us, one says. Another shakes his head. They can starve us. They can kill us, and Pharaoh's guards will hunt us like jackals. The words churn in your chest long after silence falls. For the first time, you imagine it ropes slack ramps, empty the pyramid standing unfinished, while the workers vanish into the dunes. A vision of freedom, reckless and fleeting like the shadow of a hawk across the sand. But then you remember the graves of those who deserted. You remember the lash across your own back, the overseer's staff striking until blood rose. Freedom in the desert is only another kind of death. So you rise with the others at dawn, take up the rope once more, and add your voice to the chant that drowns rebellion before it can take root. The pyramid at night one evening, long after the overseers retreat to their tents, you wander up the unfinished ramp. The moon hangs full and white, casting silver across the limestone blocks. The pyramid gleams ghost like a mountain of light against the black sky. You rest your hand against one of the stones, cool and smooth beneath your fingers. For a moment, the world is silent, no whips, no chance, no overseers, only you and the endless stone. And then you hear it a low hum deep within the pyramid itself. Perhaps it is only wind through the scaffolding or your weary mind playing tricks, but it feels alive, resonant like a heartbeat, too vast to belong to any man. You step back, trembling. The thought rises unbidden. Perhaps the priest was not wrong. Perhaps this structure is not simply a tomb, but something greater, something that drinks the labor, the pain, the lives of thousands, and transforms it into eternity. Whether that eternity belongs to Pharaoh or to the pyramid itself, you cannot say. When you return to your hut, you lie awake staring at the stars. The chants of the workers echo in your ears. The cries of the storm still sting your lungs. The priest's warning scratches at your mind. You know tomorrow you will rise again, take the rope again, chant again, yet beneath the ache of your bones and the gnaw of hunger, a deeper thought coils like a serpent. Perhaps you are not building Pharaoh's eternity. Perhaps you're building the deserts. And in that eternity, your sweat, your scars, even your name will be forgotten. But the pyramid will remember.